Of a man who's been synonymous with running for over 30 years now, five-time gold medal winner, Steve Cram.
Less than 30 years, thank you.
But from what I hear, you won your first race at 6 years old, so you're in good nick. You're in good nick.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Well, I'm glad, to be honest. It's great to be here standing with you rather than running a marathon this morning, although I've done a few of them myself as well. Know how they're feeling. They'll be nervous.
Yeah.
A lot of anticipation. Great backdrop here in Singapore, one of the world's great cities, and that's what this sort of backdrop will inspire them.
Yeah.
But of course, that marathon distance that you mentioned, you've got to respect it. And it's hot and humid here as well. So let's hope that everyone has a great race.
Yeah. Given your vast knowledge of running, you must know exactly what these runners are going through mentally and physically at the start of this race.
Well, it's very early in the morning. Yeah. So, but they will have been excited. They maybe couldn't sleep. Hopefully they've prepared well, all the training that they've been doing, haven't done anything silly in the last week or so, well hydrated before they get to the start line, keep hydrated when they're out there. But a lot of anticipation, and I think maybe, look to what the elites do. They obviously come to these sort of races and prepare very meticulously, and it doesn't matter if you're running 5 hours or 2.5 hours, you should prepare as well as you can. And
they prepare very similarly, the elites and of course the general group of open runners. We have a good group of elite runners this year. We have some returning champions and some champions who can repeat. Now, what do you expect from these group of elite runners?
I think the women's race, we've got a big favourite, two-time winner before, Irene Kosgei, likes running here, obviously gets these conditions, and she's a Commonwealth champion in Delhi 2 years ago. Men's race though, 3 former champions, including the record holder, but I'm not sure that I could predict anything in the men's race. I think anything could happen there.
And one of the champions, of course, is Charles Kanyao, returning to defend his title here at the Standard Chartered Marathon Singapore. Let's hear from this champion and what this win in 2011 meant for him.
My name is Charles Kanyao. I come from Kenya. I won last year Singapore Marathon.
Furiously, and he will win. So a victory in 14:35 unofficial. What a finish.
I was number 1. Although it was very odd, I tried my best to be number 1. It was difficult because it was my first time to win a race. The other time I was becoming number 2. So this year it will be hard because when I look at the list, I saw the more champion coming for this race this year. So it will be difficult. The weather is too hot. That's the challenge. If it will be better, climate, not so hot, it will be good. I'm targeted to win again, but I try my best.
Steve, you had a chance to go through the course this year. What do you think of the layout of the course?
Well, look, we're surrounded by one of the world's most beautiful and impressive cities, and the backdrop of that is something the athletes will enjoy. They're really down through the sort of downtown area in the first few kilometres, and as you said, they then go along by the waterfront, spectacular along there. Then they start to head out towards East Coast Park, and I think they'll enjoy it here. A lot of shade, a lot of trees. They get to the halfway point where they'll turn around, they'll be able to see athletes going in the other area, in the other direction. That'll help inspire them a little bit. Then they come back, again, they'll see the city backdrop ahead of them, around the Marina Barrage, and then they'll be able to sense home at this point. A few kilometres to go, they've got a couple of little twists and turns along the Esplanade, and then that last kilometre or so will be very, very welcome for them. And of course, that's when they'll meet the half marathon runners, and we've got the 10K going on as well. It'll be very exciting.
Now, as we just saw there, this is one of the more scenic marathons on the calendar, but something tells me that these runners are going to, well, it's going to matter very little to these runners that it's very scenic, isn't it?
Well, when you've been out there for a couple of hours and you're hot and you're thirsty and you maybe don't appreciate the scenery quite as much as we might, but I think it does help. It helps that you're in a big event when you've got lots of people around you. That's why people come to these events. People travel the world to come and run in events like Singapore, and I think that is why, you know, people say, why would you run a marathon? It's the sense of occasion, and they want to come and experience this. And that's the same for elite athletes. You know, they look for the races around the world that they want to come and take part in. There are lots of marathons. There aren't many with this amount of competitors, so it's important for the elite athletes as well.
And speaking of elite athletes, of course, one of the returning champions in the women's category is Irene Kosgei. She has a chance to three-peat in this event. Do you see that happening?
Well, it can happen because she's a very good athlete. She's a class marathon runner, Commonwealth champion, I said earlier on. She's in pretty good form. Won a big marathon earlier on in the year, different conditions. It was in Europe and it was wet and fairly chilly. But she knows this course. And rather unusually for a marathon runner, she's very tall, Irene.
Yeah.
Twisty, turny course, but she seems to cope well with the course and the conditions here.
And of course, the race that Steve is referring to that Irene won earlier this year is in Milan. But the race that she has her eye on, certainly at this point of the morning, is this Standard Chartered Marathon Singapore. Let's hear from Irene and her chances of winning this year.
My name is Irene Cherotich from Kenya. I'm defending champion for the Standard Chartered Marathon Singapore.
What a run from Irene Kosgei there.
I'm a winner for 2 times, champion. So I hope, I don't predict, because marathon is something different. I hope if I'll be having a chance, I'll try my best to go for it. It's a challenge a bit because sometimes it's very hot. Humidity is so tough. It's my psychological advantage. So the course this time is being changed a little bit, but I think I'll not find it so tough. If I feel very comfortable with the weather and the conditions, I'll try my best. Though I have not seen the start list, but I can see some of them are tough. My colleagues from Kenya as well, from Ethiopia, and some from Russia. So competition is always tough. I'm happy to come back again to the year 2012, and I hope it will be so great if I could manage to defend again.
And as we can see there, all the elite runners have lined up at the start of this full marathon. That's the Standard Chartered Marathon Singapore. And the start point, of course, for the full marathon is on Orchard Road, just outside the Hiran Shopping Center, between Hiran and Takashimaya. And we can see the men lining up. And just to bring in, just to familiarize the viewers at home with some of the male runners and their bib numbers. The returning champion, Charles Canio, he looking to defend his title from last year, is wearing bib number 1. Like we said earlier with Steve, he did mention that Charles has not run this year, so he's not been tested. It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. We will wait to find out.
Well, a lot of nervous athletes there, Uday, just waiting to get underway. They've had to get up very early this morning. They will have had something to eat, the elite athletes. They will have made sure that all of their drink preparations have been placed at the various drink stations. Very important to keep hydrated. These elite athletes done this many, many times. 1 or 2 debutantes in here. We'll talk about them a little later, particularly in the women's race. But these last few moments are the worst. You just want to get going now. They want to get underway. They want to just get their legs moving, get those first few kilometers relaxed, because of course it's still dark at the moment, and this is the coolest they're going to be all day. So I think a few last minute sort of anxious moments, but really looking forward to it. And that men's race in particular, I think, is very, very open indeed.
And just to pick up on your point, Steve, about nutrition and keeping hydrated, of course, these athletes don't want to drink too much fluids before the race, because there's a tendency for amateur athletes to drink too much before the race. You should stop an hour or two before the flag off.
Yeah, the secret really, we'll probably talk about this a fair bit today, is to be hydrated when you stand on the start line, but as you said, not overhydrated. You don't want to be running off to the toilets and suddenly have a last-minute panic. So really over the last day or so, you can see their temperature already 28 degrees centigrade, and it's the humidity that's the problem. That's the issue for marathon runners. They'll often run marathons in temperatures as high as this, doesn't help. It's the combination of humidity and heat which is a real problem. You don't lose enough body heat, if you like, and so you can, if you're not careful, get to a point where you become dehydrated very, very quickly. So at the front and at the back, drinking water, very important.
And as you can see that the course record holder, Luc Kibet, came in a time of 2 hours, 11 minutes and 25 seconds 3 years ago. He is, of course, in the field right now. He is wearing bib number 9, and he's amongst the runners who have just set off for the Standard Chartered Marathon 2012. And it's a go.
Well, this is always a wonderful sight to see 20,000 people setting off on the classic marathon distance. Everybody always interesting, isn't it? They don't trust everyone's wearing a transponder, gives them electronic time, but they've all got their stopwatches. They'll have a race plan, making sure they don't go through these first few kilometers too quickly, don't get too excited. The elite athletes will probably spend a couple of kilometers just checking each other out, just getting into their rhythm. And further back down the field, it's important that the sense of occasion doesn't get to you. So many great stories, Uday. Lots of people running for charity as well, obviously. And as you've said, this event has grown and grown. A limit this year, actually. It's become so popular that they've had to put a limit on the entries.
Yes, they've had to put a limit to the entries. In fact, we had a record number of entrants last year, peaking at 65,000. This year, the Singapore Sports Council has decided that to run a more efficient race, they've limited the number of participants to 53,000. Now, that's still a lot of runners, if you think about it, because there are 19,200 runners setting off at the full marathon mark. And later on at the half marathon mark, you'll have 20,000 runners setting off. So they've made this course more efficient. They've reduced the number of participants and runners for the event. And we'll see that, hopefully, in the times coming down.
Well, the half marathon gets underway in about 90 minutes or so, and they'll join the marathon runners. They all come up the same finishing section. The 10K starts a little later on. There's a kids dash as well, and as Uday's been saying, 53,000 people out on the streets of Singapore eventually this morning. But for now, it's the marathon runners who are leading the way.
And here you can see the elite runners, the front of the pack. Nobody's just breaking away just yet, as we expected. Not like last year when Vincent Krupp broke away from the pack pretty early on and held his lead. But that's not a very prudent strategy, is it, Steve?
It's not in a race like this, and it looks a fairly good pace actually early on. And you know, it's unless you're at such a level, such an elite level, that you've got a lot of confidence in your ability to go out and maintain a pace, given the fact that everything we've talked about, temperature, humidity, the winning time, the course record is only 2 hours 11. So if you start heading off in the first kilometre, under 3-minute pace, and it looks as though they may well have done that, then it's just not common sense. So you've got to be patient, you've got to settle, you've got to get into a nice rhythm, you just got to click these first few miles off and stay as comfortable and as relaxed as you can. So anyone who's at the front at these early stages, I always get a little bit concerned for them.
Yes, and the runner you're seeing at the front right now is John Coleman, who's run this year in Rome and Vienna. He didn't finish his race in Rome this year. He dropped out at the 30-kilometer mark. And in April, which is a month later, he ran in Vienna in a time of 2 hours and 9 minutes and 24 seconds. That's a pretty decent time, isn't that, Steve?
Yeah, he ran well there. He is a very good athlete, and I think he's come here with a real plan here. We'll obviously just have a little quick look at what's happening back at the start. It's going to take a while for everybody to get across the start line, but there's a lot of them have already gone through. 1 or 2 latecomers there. Maybe the alarm didn't go off in time.